Hello everybody and welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another episode here in the series. My name is Dominic and I'm the host of the Android Factory. Last episode we went ahead and added in this little quantity indicator here, this little quantity UI thing. We built just a specific layout for it and then included that layout. As you can see here, we included that layout inside of our full-on cart model here, the epoxy model. If you missed it, I'll link a card in the top right. And in today's episode, we're just going to continue on with some of our cart implementation and specifically start hooking up some of these UI interactions, right? Because right now, this trash can that should remove it from the cart, this favorite icon that should favorite the product does not work. Everything else does, right? If we favorite the product here on the page that has it all hooked up, we see that this product has been favorited and all the data is correct. We just don't have any user interactions at this point. And if we take a look at our cart fragment epoxy model, or epoxy controller, excuse me, we do create the cart item epoxy model for everything, for all of the products that are in our cart. And then we just have simple callbacks here on favorite clicked, on delete clicked, a couple to-dos, and that's about it, right? But these parameters here that are being passed in are being used here and here, so everything is already connected. It's just a question of actually manipulating the store in these different callbacks here. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. As I pull this class out here, I'm just going to pull it out into its own file now just to keep things cleaner. If you are brand new, please consider subscribing. If you're returning, I do greatly appreciate your support in the series so far. So yeah, we're just going to paste it in there and everything should work fine. It's already in the same package, so it just gets imported for us and we're all good. All right, kind of clean some things up here, gives us a little more room to work with, you know, as far as inside of this file without things being too large. So let's go ahead and take a look at our favorite click and delete click. So the one thing that we're going to need here is in our cart fragment, we're going to need a reference to our view model. And if we take a look at our view model here, we have our store, that's where all our data is coming for. We have this thing, a reducer, to kind of help us build this UI, and in this sense, basically reduce down the application state into something we care about displaying. And then in other cases here, we're going to need two other items for our different interactions here. So we have our UI product favorite updater, and then we also have our UI product in-cart updater. These two functionality, or these two classes here, we built out a few episodes ago. Basically, given a few different inputs, it provides a different state with everything kind of updated for you, and we can use that to modify our state here, and I'll show you how in just a second. So popping back to our controller, we are going to need an instance of that view model here. So we'll just add it into our constructor, no big deal, cart fragment view model. All right, and we can start with our favorite click here. So we can simply say view model dot store dot update, excuse me. And then we need to basically, given an application state, we need to return the new application state. We do also note that this is a suspending function here. So we are going to cut that, and we are going to say view model scope dot launch. And now within here, we can go ahead and change things. We are going to return that update our view model dot, which one is this? The favorite UI product favorite updater dot update, where our product ID equals UI product dot ID, and the other parameter is the current state equals it, right? And it is the application state that gets passed into this update block. You can see it written there as a little like tooltip. Okay, so on favorite should be done there. We're going to copy and we're going to paste it here into the delete clicked, and instead we're going to say UI product in cart updater, and that is going to basically be smart enough to either add something to the cart, or in this case it's going to remove it from the cart because it already exists in the cart here. So let's go ahead and rerun things here. The declaration of the function looked exactly the same. We needed a product ID that we cared about. Of course, I forgot to add the view model in there, but that's a very quick fix. So bouncing back into here, the functions looked exactly, these update functions looked exactly the same. they needed the product ID, and then the current state of the application state, and everything would work as we would expect. So we're going to go ahead and add these two items to the cart. Go ahead and favorite that item. We can see that now we have that beautiful interaction happening instantaneously. If we bounce back, we do see that it is favorited here. We unfavorite it here. It's unfavorited there. Perfect. Everything is in sync. And then let's go ahead and delete this, and wonderful, right? Oh, look at that. We even transitioned to our empty state there. Everything is pretty smooth. We are not doing anything in our empty state. Let's see if we can clean that up real quick. Yeah, we got a nice on click right here and a nice big fat to do. So let's see, what's the best way to do this? Okay, so thinking about what we need to do here, right? We're gonna click this button, and the idea is that we wanna transition to this tab here, right? So there's really nothing that we need to do inside of the store. So our view model here is not really super helpful from the perspective of, like, we don't need the store, we don't need anything like that. What we could do, we could use a live data in here that we could populate inside of this callback that would be observed in our fragment, and then that would know, hey, you know, we should probably navigate backwards or navigate to a particular location. But instead, I think I'm just going to actually put it in here, you know, basically the on empty state clicked, just as a lambda here. Having the lambda as the last argument inside of our constructor does afford us some interesting syntax at the call site here. So when we have our epoxy controller during the creation process, obviously we need another parameter here, but because the lambda is the last one, we can actually attach it as a trailing lambda here, and then we can, you know, we need to navigate from here. The only thing is that you kind of lose, in my opinion, you lose some readability here, and I'm not like a super big fan of that. So actually, in this case, I would actually prefer to cut this out, put a little comma there, specifically with the named arguments. You can very easily just kind of pop that in there, and now it's a lot more clear what this lambda is doing, right? Previously, there was a trailing lambda. There was no parameters passed into that. There was really nothing that we could you know, use there to describe exactly what that lambda's purpose was. And in this case here, now it's a lot more clear, right? The epoxy controller has a view model, and then on empty state clicked here, this lambda, okay, you can guess what's going to happen here or why this would be invoked. That being said, what we need to do next is actually get a reference to our activity and then try to navigate or basically change tabs here. So let's see real quick. What is it called? Main activity? Yep. Yeah, so this is private. I guess, you know, we could just create like a little function here. Why not? Let's just do this here. Function, navigate to tab, let's call it. I need to actually figure out what the syntax is here. So we need to do binding dot bottom navigation view dot like, okay, I think this is it. I think it's the selected item ID. And I think that is returns the current ID. No, not get. Sorry, I need to set it here. Yeah, so perform action. Okay, so I think what we need to do here is we need to set this to like the destination ID. And then this needs to be the destination ID, which is an integer. We can also annotate this with so we could annotate it with @ID res, basically mentioning that, like, yes, this is an integer, but this integer is supposed to be a particular identifying resource, right, that we have inside of our project. So then within our fragment here, we can basically go with activity as we're going to try to cast it to the main activity. In this case, because we only have one activity, this is a relatively safe pattern to do. But we will nullably, you know, cast it so that if for some reason this fragment is a part of a different activity, the code doesn't crash. It might not work, but at least the code won't necessarily crash. So I guess that's a positive thing here. And then what we want to do here is we want to say r.id, import our r, and then we're going to go with the products list fragment. And then if we go ahead and rerun things here, hopefully that empty state will kind of become useful. Relaunching the app here, we're going to go ahead and select one item. We'll go ahead and delete that item from the cart, And then when we go ahead and click it here, we do navigate over. Even if we go back and we're already in this empty state, we go backwards, all of this is looking pretty fine here. So we do have this stuff connected up, which is quite wonderful. Never a bad idea to save work as you've kind of made some progress here. So I'm going to go ahead and commit here, handling our user interaction on that model. And we completed our empty state for the fragment, kind of save state because we're in a pretty good place to do so. And then we just go ahead and close that, and now we're already good. Got a clean slate to work with here. I think the only other thing that I kind of wanted to cover here was actually interacting with this now. If we do remember from the last episode, we went ahead and just kind of applied a very basic implementation here as far as always calling 9 and then having, basically nothing happening in our two different on clicks here. So I do want to spin up this different or handle this different interaction so that we actually have a quantity associated with the particular item here. And so in order to do that, I think we need to first take a look at our application state here. And we gotta think about how we want to actually represent this information, right? Because we now need basically a mapping of this product ID here or this product ID here, or at the very least the product itself, and a particular quantity that's associated with it, right? And we have our products in the store, but again, these products are just like the raw data class. This isn't really, something super helpful. This is just like the bare bones minimal amount of data that we need for all of the UI to actually work. We then have the concept of our UI product, which has the product itself and then has a bunch of UI related information here. Is it favorited? Is it expanded? Is it in the cart, etc.? And I'm going back and forth between having another extension on this and having it like a cart UI product and having then a UI product contained in that, and then also a quantity field. Let's see, does that make the most sense, or should it just be in here? I think for teaching purposes and for demonstration, we're going to go ahead and create that additional layer. So we're going to go with a UI product in cart is what we're going to call this one. We're going to have a data class here. And then as you would imagine, this is going to have the UI product. And then it's also going to have a quantity, which will be an integer. And that will default to 1 because if you add something to the cart, you should have, one item, or there should be at least one quantity associated with that. And we can go ahead and use that to our advantage here. So then if we imagine the rest of our code here, instead of this being a UI product, if this is a UI product in cart, okay, obviously we got to do a little bit of cleanup here. So we'll say UI product in cart. And then in these cases, we're going to have to say dot UI product, and let's just copy that over to here as well. Perfect. So it might seem a little overkill, right? UI product in cart dot UI product dot product dot title. We're kind of going multiple layers deep to just get this one little string. But I do think that for the purposes of this exercise and for the purposes of like thinking about how you can structure things and trying to keep a solid separation of concerns, that does even apply to your models as well, right? So for instance, like the UI product in cart is not going to be what is displayed here, and instead, obviously it's going to be displayed here and vice versa, right? We're not using a UI product here. So everything else worked the same because we had access to everything, so it's not really that big of a deal, except now here we can say our UI product in cart dot quantity. Okay, and then .toString, of course. And there we go. Now we have some valuable actual pieces of information. So as long as this data gets updated accordingly, we will display something, as we should here. So if we go ahead and now take a look at the creation of this, obviously we are going to have to change UI product in cart. And then I think what I would like to do here is have this be an instance of, okay, so the problem is that our data.products here is a list of UI products, and realistically it should be a list of UI product in cart. This is going to blow up a few other things, like for instance this, but we can very easily clean that up. Inside of our controller we have a UI product now. We'll go ahead and rename things, why not? All right, and with all these little, extra names cleaned up and whatnot, we do have our controller working properly, and we do have our cart fragment now that we need to change here. basically when we listen to our UI products, we need to kind of transition them into something else now, right? We need to map them again into our UI product in cart instance here. So this case is pretty easy, right? If our products are empty, then we go ahead and just return empty. But in the other case here, we need to transition these into, we either need to do the mapping here or we need to do the mapping somewhere else. So I think what we might want to do is make use of our handy dandy functional operators here. And inside of there, we will map and we will just say the UI product in cart, and then our UI product equals it, and our quantity equals 1. All right, but for the sake of this example, let's just go ahead and leave quantity as 1. Let's go ahead and rerun things here to make sure that we're not missing any locations that we need to change as well. Looks like we're all good. And then when we go ahead and add these items in here, we do see nothing else has changed. Our 1 is now being displayed, so that is proper. If we updated this to like 3, then 3 would show up in the UI. So we have successfully kind of moved things over into this UI product in cart model. And a lot of our downstream code didn't have to change, right? I mean, we had to modify some things because the structure of our data was a little bit different, but it really wasn't a massive, massive lift. Now, the other part of the equation is we need to go ahead and handle the different on clicks here, and we need to, again, kind of go back to conceptualizing how we're going to save that information. So kind of similar to how we had these concepts here regarding, you know, we're leaving the products alone, and then we're kind of appending additional information in the store that we then merge and combine into our UI data. Really, really, really helpful stuff. And again, it will become helpful in this scenario as well. So we're going to go ahead and say, so we're going to add one more field in here, our cart quantities map. It's going to be a map of integer to integer. Something I tend to do when it's something simple, when the key and value is simple like this, is you know, kind of comment it a little bit. So this is product ID to quantity is kind of what this syntax means. This is an integer, and then this is basically the key and the value that is inside of this map here, just so you never have to forget, so you don't have to dig into the code and actually see exactly what's going on. Not a bad idea to leave yourself some help there. And then let's see, we got to go back out to our fragment here, and we need to do something. So I love this because we're filtering down just the products that are in the cart. This is the flow of a list of UI products, and that is the list of UI products that are in the cart, right? So that is really helpful because let's say cart flow, we're going to set that equal to that. We're going to go ahead and remove that, or kind of move it away. What we're going to do here is we're going to need to combine our UI products cart in flow and our the view model dot store dot stateflow map it dot cart quantities map, and then here we're going to have our two different values. So the two different values in this case, two values in this case are going to be the UI products and our quantity map. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and kind of uncomment some of this stuff here. We can attach this distinct until changed on there. Wonderful. And then obviously we need to go ahead and do this modification. So in here we can very easily return we need to actually map our UI products. So we'll do this, and we need to map them into the UI product in cart. The UI product is going to be it in this case, and the quantity is going to equal our quantity map at product.id. And then obviously that can return null because we're referencing from a map. So we will default that to 1 because that's, you know, kind of what we care for, right? In the event that we can't find it in the map. So I know this might be a little intense here, but let's just walk through it one more time. So we're combining two flows. This shouldn't really be too new, you know, if you've been following along, but the idea here is that there is a flow for the products in the cart, right? And that flow can get updated independently. That flow would get updated when someone removes something or when someone adds something to the cart. Really, really good, really quick and easy stuff. And then we're also using our a map operator on the state flow of the entire store to map it down to just the flow of the cart quantities map. So we're basically listening for any changes in the cart quantities map, or we're listening to any changes in the UI products that are in the cart, right, where this Boolean is true. So we're listening to both of these flows simultaneously. If anything gets updated, this block of code will run. We get those parameters passed in with like the current value, right, the current updates that just happened. Then we need to take our UI products and we need to map them into the UI products in cart. We go ahead and give it the UI product we care about. We fetch the quantity not in a hard-coded fashion, but instead from our quantity map, and obviously defaulting to 1 because that's what makes sense. All of this downstream code here remains the same because it's the same, right? If something's empty, we're in an empty state. If we're in a non-empty state, we have our data. And then we just basically set that on our controller here. So we get this whole nice interaction here. Let's go ahead and rerun things just to make sure that we are working as expected. Coming back up here, we're going to go ahead and add a few things to the cart. Yeah, we see 1 there. Wonderful stuff. We can go ahead and delete things. We can favorite it. So we have not lost any functionality. We see it's favorited again. We go back, it's unfavorited. Wonderful. This is a very cohesive, very in tune, very robust application at the moment. Loving the way this is working out, and hopefully you can see the power of things like flow combine, the map functionality, the filter functionality, to really just care about the bits and pieces that you want on the UI. So now the last little bit here is just updating our cart quantities map when any of these things are selected. Okay, so home stretch here, folks. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Please consider subscribing if you are brand new, and smash that like button to help me out here. I think this is a pretty fun, interesting episode. Okay, so obviously, this single declaration of the epoxy model is quite large here, right? It's this big, so it's kind of getting bloated, but I think for the sake of right now, that's okay. The other thing that we're going to do here is we're gonna help ourselves out a bit so that we don't need to have 2 callbacks, one for the plus, interaction and one for the minus interaction. And instead, we're just going to say private val, on quantity changed. This will take in an integer and expect nothing back, right? So very good. This is basically going to call on quantity changed with our UI product in cart quantity -1. And then we're just going to go ahead and copy that. And we're going to add one in the, yes, I attached them to the correct listeners. So the plus image view, we are adding 1 to our quantity, and in the minus image view, we are adding 1 to our, subtracting 1. Okay, so now here we can add in our on quantity changed. We'll give this a new value here, new quantity. Sure, why not? We can be very verbose here, and we can even add in the name. And then we're going to do something similar here. So we're going to say viewModel dot viewModel scope, launch it, viewModel dot store dot update here, and now we have our application state. We need to return a new application state here. So basically, we need to update that map in here. All right, and we can do so by updating a few things incrementally here, right? So we're going to need to define basically the new map entry. And we can set that equal to, basically a pair, right? So what we're going to say is our UI product in cart, UI product.product.id to our new quantity. Maybe not. I think the issue is that it just isn't the end of the line. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we have our new map entry. Then we will say our new map is going to be it, which we can rename here. This is going to be the current state. So we'll say current state dot cart quantities map plus our new map entry. And the concept here is, sorry, let me just finish this so that the red goes away. And then we will say our current state dot copy, and then we will update the, what's it called, cart quantities map equals new map. Lovely. Okay, so now that all the red is away, we can take a look at this line by line. So the new map entry is just, we've been given the new quantity for the particular product that has been selected. So we can go ahead and basically create a pairing, create a mapping, right? Create a map entry kind of idea. We can do so with, the pair or the map entry object, I believe. Also the to is, okay, it's just an extension on something that allows us to create a pair very quickly in the tuples.kt function. So that's really helpful. But we're basically just saying product ID to new quantity, right? Integer to integer. It maps directly to this kind of idea. Okay, so we have our new map entry, and then we will take our new map, and that is the current map plus our new entry. So the idea is that there would need to be an entry in the map no matter what, but in the event there wasn't, or in the event that there already is one, it's just going to overwrite with this new map entry, right? Because it's going to have, this product ID is going to already exist, and it'll have quantity 1, and then when they click plus, it'll go to quantity 2, and then minus, it'll go back to quantity 1, all that kind of stuff. And then we just simply copy our state and update the map that we cared for. So all of the downstream code that cared to listen for that cart quantities map will now be updated. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see how this works. Would you look at that? We are, without a doubt, adding things in. Now, there's also no limit, is what I would imagine. So, yep, look at that. We are just adding and subtracting. So we could put -4 items in the cart, and we could try to check out and therefore, I guess, get money back, which obviously is not a good UX here. So I think we can just do a little bit of error handling or edge case scenario here. I think we can just simply say if new quantity is less than 1, we will simply going ahead and rerunning this, we should just basically, short circuit here if we're less than 1. So we can go ahead and add things in, but then we can't go any further backwards, right? Because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to have 0 items in the cart. Or, in the event that it did have 0 items in the cart, we could, just run basically this code to delete the element from the cart. That's actually a pretty interesting interaction. You know what? I will leave it to you guys if you want to pull the code. Again, the code is all available on GitHub here, but basically you could just pull this out into a function. You could say, if new quantity equals 0, instead of changing this info, we just went ahead and called that function from within this lambda as well, and you would get that same issue. So the other thing that I wanted to note here, and I'd love your feedback in the comments, right? Let's say we want 5 backpacks and we go ahead and delete it. We want to go shopping again, and we're like, no, you know what, we do want those backpacks. We go back, we do preserve that quantity, right? Because this data is stored separately. It's not getting nuked, it's not getting cleared out during the delete action. Now, the beautiful part is we can just very easily hook into this one update function, and if this is true, where our product IDs in cart contains this product ID, we know that we are going to be removing that, but what we can also do is we can also update the quantity. We can reset that to 0 if we really wanted to, and then we can update the store in 2 ways so that when we add it back in, we're back down to 1. I don't mind this interaction here because it kind of feels a little bit intelligent from an application standpoint, but I'd love your feedback in the comments here to let me know, should we build that out, should we leave it as is, and otherwise, how else am I doing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear some thoughts. Let's go ahead with code 3333 to let me know that you made it this far in the video. Again, thank you so much for the support. Consider subscribing if you are brand new, and if you're returning, definitely appreciate it. Love all the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.